our good friend Mark, who has dogs, he always had a leather collar for his dogs when they came over. But when he walks his dog around the neighborhood, and that's pretty much it. So it lasts long and it looks nice, and he's not going to ruin it. So yes,
And you
like
can
go
always
for it.
have more than one collar.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Some people like to matchy matchy with their poochie
Matchy
poochie.
matchy. And then you could have a collar too.
What are we up to this week on Let's Beep Snoots?
Let's boop snoots. My name is Vero.
My name is Heidi.
Today we're going to talk about gear. So mostly collars, leashes, and then we're going to play a little game of a boop or snoot at the end of the podcast with different products that we found at the pet store.
So this week, Vero and I visited a variety of pet stores in our area and looked at everything that they had to offer. I went into the stores personally and I asked them to show me the most ridiculous items that they had and some of the more popular selling ones, and just sort of like anything that you could buy to your for your dog to either help with training or something to have in your house, and stuff that makes things more convenient and blah 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 blah. So yeah, we'll explain the booper snoot game a little later on,
Yes.
but we'll kick it off by us talking about just collars and leashes. I think to kick it off right from the start. So
So our first collar,
mhm,
shall we start?
yes, let's start.
Yeah. I feel like we have a lot to say for this episode.
We kind of do, but
Mm-hmm.
let's do it. It's boop snoots.
Let's poop notes. The first collar is just the traditional collar that you see on every dog. So the flat collar, it's either a buckle or a like a clip that you clip. It's either plastic or metal. I would recommend the metal more than the plastic because it's more durable. And those collars should not be really, or not really training collars. They're only used for when you put your dad's tags, your dog's tags. So the tag that you would buy with your dog's name on it, telephone number and address, or even the vet tags that proves that your dog was vaccinated for rabies and all of that stuff. So though that is what that collar is for.
So every dog should have one of these collars, and they come in
Yes.
all sorts of like different materials, different designs, different stuff. You can buy them literally anywhere online. There's a bazillion different companies out there that sell different types. Um, I looked even on Groupon, and they have monogrammed ones where you can monogram your dog's name and phone number on right onto the collar. I'm sure you guys have seen a variety of different dog tags that you can get to put on your dog's collar. There's little ones that look like a driver's license that says your dog's name and a funny little message like, I'm a jerk and ran away from my owner. Please call this phone number, and funny stuff like that. One thing that I found like with my dogs is, so obviously every dog that I ever had a collar, and I would always go to PetSmart because they had this machine where you picked out a different shape or color or whatever of dog tag and you put it in and it would engrave it for you. And the thing that I liked about that one is we have, like I mentioned in earlier episodes, my dad has my dogs for like half of the time, and they go to the cottage a lot. So there's a variety of different places where they can be when they get lost. So I what I liked about those tags is that it gave you 3 or 4 lines to put in. So I'd say either call this number, this number, or this number. There was 3 different phone numbers to call. But the downside to them is that when they click together, and if your dog is super active and like running a lot like mine,
Hmm.
the name and the numbers eventually start to wear off, and some of them it would happen a lot faster than others. So there's like protectors you can put around them and stuff like that, but I found I had to replace them like every 6 months. So I'm actually thinking about getting one of the more monogrammed ones,
Yeah.
and so to make it a lot easier.
Yeah. I know Wigham's name was completely scratched off
Yeah,
on his, but they're inexpensive. And if you think that you're going to be moving or changing your phone number, that would be the tag to get.
absolutely.
And I don't remember how much they are.
The tags, they're like anywhere from like $10 to like 15 or $20.
Okay.
I would say for the different types that are out there that I've seen, the PetSmart ones I think are 9.95, and that includes the engraving with. And if you want like a fancier looking like tag and stuff, then they're like sometimes can be like 14.99 or something like
Yeah.
that. But
I saw some at Ren's Depot, like the different tags that you can use. And
mm-hmm.
there was different tags with the different breeds. So we
Oh,
have a golden
that's cute.
retriever. You could have a golden retriever tag, and behind it, you would either have, I guess there wasn't a lot of space, so probably just your pet's name. And I don't know if you would just need a separate one for your address and your phone number,
Yeah,
but they were pretty cute.
they're super cute. I would say when you go to get your dog's collar, I would say just be mindful of what you're going to be doing with your dog and where you're going to be taking them, because like I just got traditional collars, they were cloth ones, and I, like I said, I would put the pet tags on them, but my dogs go up to the cottage, they're in the swamps, they're in the everything, and I found I was washing them a whole lot. And I went to a pet show where there was this woman who had this company that made paracord collars, and I remember her saying to me, like, the paracord is a more dense material and they braid it together so it looks super awesome and cool. And because it's so toit, the
Toit.
material is so toit, that it doesn't retain stink a whole lot. And I would say that that's true. Like, the one collar that I got for Becky from that show lasted me for years and years without me even having to wash it until she decided to roll in a dead skunk one day.
That sounds like fun.
And yeah, and I soaked that like for a while, and I couldn't get the stink out, so I got rid of it and I got another one. So
Yeah.
both Becky and Gibbon have the paracord, which I love. And actually my good friend Michelle, who I've mentioned several times on here, makes paracord collars.
She makes them.
She does. And she
Oh.
started like a little, I'm not sure if she kicked up her online thing or not. We'll have to give her a shout out on our soch for her. But I told her to make a company called Leashes.
Oh, that's so good.
And I'm not sure if she went ahead with it or not, but I know that she's made several collars and leashes, like matching leashes to go with the collars. And she made a couple for me for Becky and Gibbs, and I love, 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 love them.
Oh.
But
Speaking of stinky collars,
mhm,
I saw a collar that was made, it was almost like a rubber material. And it
mhm,
was like, I think the name was like stink free collar.
mhm,
So, like you said, if you have a dog that runs around in the woods or goes for a swim a lot, that might be a collar to look for. And when you're sizing your dog's collar, you want to make sure that it's not too snug. You want to be able to fit a couple of fingers underneath
yes.
the collar and your dog's neck.
Yes. And if it's one with a belt like buckle, I would say try to
Yes,
size it so that you have room for either if they grow, because dogs' weights, depending on what you're doing with them, will fluctuate too, right? So,
yes. And they stretch a
um,
little bit too.
yeah.
I know
Yes.
Wiggum had a
Yes.
leather collar. I like the classic look of the leather collar, but it was stinky.
Yeah.
And you could not wash that.
No, and if they're going for a swim, they're going to ruin the leather. Like, yeah, we talked about that a little earlier. I know our good friend Mark, who has dogs, he always had a leather collar for his dogs when they came over, but
It just
he
looks so
go
good.
it does, it looks so good, but don't, when he walks his dog around the neighborhood, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
So it lasts long and it looks nice, and he's not going to ruin it. So yes,
And you
like
can
go
always
for it.
have more than one collar.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. Some people like to matchy matchy with their poochie
Matchy
poochie.
matchy. And then you could have a collar too. So you could matchy matchy your poochie.
Oh my God, Vero, we have to get you and your new pup like matching collars and
Like
then
this
go
one
for a
here.
stroll.
This one here.
Oh, oh,
Oh,
oh.
oh.
Vero's got a special guest on the show with us
Yes.
today
It's a fake golden retriever
until she gets her
bought
real one.
at IKEA. It's very inexpensive, easy to train,
What
doesn't even need a collar.
what was the IKEA name for it? Was it like Schnugelbear?
It was Gosig,
Oh, a
which
Gosig.
means which means huggable.
Oh.
Isn't he huggable?
Well, yes.
Yes.
Yes. He is huggable.
Yes.
So, like we said, every dog needs a regular collar. They need a collar around their neck, and if you're lucky enough that that's all you need for walking your dog because they're not having any problems with pulling or any sort of behavior on leash, then more power to you. But that is the very first place that you should start with your pooch.
And a little side note, but still about collars. Make sure that when you put your dog in your crate, to take off the collar.
Yes,
It's a bit of a choking hazard.
yes, agreed.
Yes.
I
And that's
agree.
it.
So, moving on to the next caller, we looked at the gentle leader.
Yes. When I had Wiggum, that is the collar that I used for Wiggum. So the gentle leader rests around the dog's snoot. It goes around the snoot. It's not tight. They can still yawn. They can still open their mouth. They can still eat. And then it goes under the ears and ties behind the head. So what it does is if you're walking your dog and he starts to pull or he's starting to go sideways, all you need to do is you kind of just like gently lead him back. And instead of pulling on the dog's neck, putting pressure on the neck, it turns the dog's head in the direction that you want the dog to go.
Mhm.
Um, you still have to be careful not to pull too hard on it.
Yeah, you don't want to
It can
cut
squeeze the snoot quite a lot if you pull hard, and you don't want to pull, like crank the
the.
neck too quickly or too hard either.
Yeah, that's
Wiggum
like
was pretty
doggy
easy.
physio.
Yeah. Then you would
Little
need
physio
doggy
treatment.
physio.
Like, or you would be your dog's chiropractor, a little crank of the neck, straighten them out.
And then he'll end up like always walking in one direction because he's
Exactly.
like his neck is crooked.
Bent
So
neck doggy.
that's what I used on Wiggum. Wiggum was pretty easy to walk, except for when he met another dog, and depending on how excited the other dog was, Wiggum would get equally as excited, and that's all he needed to redirect his attention.
But like whilst talking about collars and the different types, you need to know that like when you get your dog, and depending on like I said, how you want to be walking with them, or depending on the behaviors that they have, one thing may work and three other things may not. So what I'll also say really quickly here is, when I went to these pet stores looking at all their different products, most of the pet stores have a return policy, so that if something is not working for you, you can bring it back to the store, which is amazing.
Yes.
Almost every one of them said that. And like you said, the gentle leader worked perfect for Wiggum. It did not work for Becky.
Yeah.
I tried it for Becky. So when we got Becky, she was a puller. Like I said, she would pull, and I tried a variety of different things on her. And like I said before, and I'll mention it again and again and again, when you go to the store to buy these things, talk to the people in the store, Google a video on it, know how to use it properly before you try.
Yes.
So I fitted Becky for a gentle leader, and I knew the whole concept behind it and everything like that. But Becky would not tolerate having this thing around her snoot.
Oh, a
And
lot of dogs don't.
oh, she would not, like, I couldn't even walk 3 steps. I'm not exaggerating. She would do, like, flips, somersaults, trying to get this thing the heck off her snoot. Like, she was like, "Get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off." She hated it. Like, she would panic, like, when I'd put it on
Oh,
her. So I tried for days. I tried putting it on her and just leaving it. I tried walking her just a bit, like, just around that, and she wouldn't. I couldn't walk her. She
she
would
wouldn't stop,
refuse.
eh? I know
She
at the beginning, Wiggum would paw at it a little bit, but once we were walking,
Mhm.
he was fine. And then he didn't, after that, like he didn't mind having it on at all.
Yeah,
But
I
Becky,
couldn't. Becky would not. She would not. Yeah. So,
oh, he would
all
even
right. On.
like present his face,
Oh, really?
put my gentle leader on, go for a walk.
So, moving on to the next one. We're moving on to the slip lead next. So, the slip lead is a collar that goes around, and I mentioned it in a previous episode, and it sounds horrible, but it looks like a noose. So it loops around at the end, and it usually has like a leather stopper so that you can sit it where you want on the dog's neck, which this is what I used for the most of my dog training. For all of Gibbs training, he always had a slip lead on in the house. I would even try him with it outside when he was a pup too. And the concept of the slip lead is that it sits high up on their neck, almost like right in behind their ears and almost right at their jawline. And it's to put pressure around it. So you slowly, like if you're wanting them to walk through a door or you're wanting to lead them somewhere, you hold the pressure on it so that it's just snug around them, and then as soon as they start doing what you want them to do, you release it. So they're like, "Oh, I'm uncomfortable. Oh, okay, she wants me to go here. Oh, that feels better." And
Yeah.
then it teaches them to listen, or you can lead them to do anything you want them to do. And when they do it, you release the pressure. So that's
Yeah.
the communication going right there. So I use that for, to me, that, and again, every dog is different, but for me, the slip lead was my most used tool in my
Yeah.
training with
I think
with
that's like, I know when I got Wiggum, like I said, I read mostly about the purely positive approach.
Mhm,
I think I was just like not informed enough about the other approach. I
mhm.
think I thought that was like the only, not the only way, but that was like a good way
Yeah.
of training your dog. And now I'm learning about all these new things and I'm watching videos from Jeff Gelman and Stony Dennis. And
Mhm.
I just can't wait to get my dog
I
and
know.
train my dog.
It's super rewarding. It is.
Yeah.
And when you get them to do, and when they start getting it and you figure out what type of thing that you're using to get them to listen to you, and when they do and they do it, that's how the bonding happens, man. So I have nothing bad to say about the slip lead. I think it's a good tool to use for a lot of people. I think it's a good thing to start before you get into the more like sort of intricate ones, or ones that need that like a lot of like extra instruction and training and stuff like that to use. I think the slip lead is an excellent place to start. And I gave my slip lead to my sister, who just got a corgi last Christmas.
Ooh.
And I remember, so I went over to her house recently, and she was saying, I cannot, like, she said, I've been touching his paws from the beginning, and he won't let me cut his nails. And she said, even if she's like, watch this. So she went into the other room, she got the nail clippers, started approaching him, and he literally would start to cry. He would be like, and you're not even touching him with
Yeah.
it. So I was like, Ange, here's what you got to do. You got to get him comfortable. So I got out the slip lead, I put it around his neck, I put him in a down, and then I grabbed the nail clippers. And when he started to whine, I would pull pressure on the slip lead and say, no, uh-uh. And then as soon as he would stop, I would release it. And then he'd be quiet, and I'd bring the nail clippers closer to him. And if he started to cry, I'd say, nope, and I would pull on the and hold him down in the down position because he wanted to run away. And as soon as he was laying down calmly again, I would release the pressure. And within, I'm not exaggerating, 5 minutes, I was able to just touch the nail clippers to his paws with him laying there calmly and not making a sound. And she was like, oh. And I'm like,
Success.
yep,
Yep.
that's how you start. So the slip lead is excellent because, like I said, you can hold them in any position. If I wanted to, I was teaching her how to do place with him, and same thing, I had the collar around him. And but it was funny because I'd practiced place with him before. When I went to come to get him with the slip lead for the nail clipper thing, he
He
took off. He
remembered.
was like, yeah, he was like, nope, 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 she's gonna make me do stuff I don't like. And went and hid underneath the dining room table. but
Aw.
um but it's interesting because even when I come to their house now, he looks at me like, he's like, oh,
He
hey,
knows. Yeah.
hey, am I gonna have to listen to you, or are we gonna hang out, or what's going, why is she
We
here?
can do both.
Yep. Exactly. So yas to the slip lead, everybody. Yas, yas,
Yes.
yas. 1,000 times yas to the slip lead. All right, what's next? We got the prong slash
The
pro trainer.
yes. And I think we spoke about the prong collar
Yes.
on our last episode, but we called it the pinch
We
collar.
called it the pinch, but it's actually called the
Yeah, so
prong.
those are the
I think
same.
there's also a German name for it, like the
This
Schlinger. I don't know.
Oh, I thought it was a Springer.
Oh, maybe.
Oh, I think that's the company
Oh,
actually.
maybe. But yeah, so there's a lot of controversy over the prong collar. And I think we mentioned that
Mhm.
before too. Like, oh my god, people think it's abusive. They think you're pinching your dog, you're choking them to death. And again, I'll say it again, 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 again. If you're not using it properly, of course you are not going to have the success, or you're not going to have the desired outcome,
Yeah.
or you are going to hurt your dog, the worst of all.
Yeah.
So the prong collar is, and this is why we sort of like talked about the slip lead and now prong, and then the one that we'll talk about next, all have the same concept, and it's putting pressure on that sensitive area. Like I said, high, high, high up on the neck, almost at the jawline and in behind the ears. And the if you take a prong collar and put it around your arm and pull on it like just enough, you'll see that it doesn't hurt. But if you yank your arm on it with all of your might, absolutely it's going to hurt. So
Yeah, like anything else.
exactly. So the prong collar I used for walking my dogs because they were pullers. And then there's exercises that you can do with the prong collar that makes them easier to walk. And even to this day, when I take Gibbs and Becky out to the park or to go where I'm going to go let them off leash, I use the prong. And it's because the prong is good because even if you find you have a dog that's super reactive to squirrels or other dogs or people walking by, even doing the prong collar training, it will change your life. I swear it up and down. And when I did all the exercises with them, and again, we can post some videos. There's a lot of different super experienced people out there in terms of leash training,
Yes.
and you can
Yeah.
find like in one search 10 different videos on how to use the prong collar and how to fit it so it has to fit properly. You have to place it on properly. And um the next most important thing I'll say about the prong collar, and I'll give you an example of it, is that if you don't have a leash attached to it, it should not be on the dog. So, as an example, I take Gibbon and Becky across the street to the park, and then there's a big wide open area where I can let them off leash. So I walk them over there on the prongs, I make them sit stay, and I take the prong collar off, keeping in mind that they have their regular collars on with their dog tags, with their names and their phone numbers on it. So now I've got two collars on them. Okay. And so I make them sit stay. I take the prong collars off because if they take off, there's a little bush area and they get that prong collar stuck on something and then they struggle to get out. Now it's hurting them, right? Because they're pulling. So
Yeah.
never leave the prong collar on if the leash is not on it
Yeah.
and you do not have control over it. Never leave it on them because
No.
that's a ouchie waiting to happen.
Yes.
An oucharoo.
An oucharoo. So during my shopping, I saw a collar named Pro Training Collar. It looks like a prong collar. Well, it kind of looks like a prong collar. I think it's inspired by the prong collar. It's made of hard plastic, and instead of prongs that go around the collar that tightens around the dog's neck, it looks like plastic triangles. So it's the same concept. If you're pulling on it, it applies pressure around the dog's neck to make it uncomfortable. And as soon as the pulling stops, then the pressure releases. And that's when the dog realizes that, okay, if I stop pulling, then that uncomfortable feeling goes away. I've never actually seen that collar on a dog.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked it up when I got home, and there are some videos on it on how to fit it properly. So it's very much like the prong collar, and how to remove the links
Mm-hmm.
and add some links
Mm-hmm.
to it to make sure that you have the right size for your dog. I'm not sure about that collar. Like, I had never heard about it.
It's new to me as well, and I'm almost wondering if they made it because the prong collar looks very intimidating, and that's why people will take
Mhm.
one look at it and they'll be like, "There's no way that's gonna like hurt my dog," and they don't even try putting it on themselves and giving it a little tug or anything like that.
Yeah.
And again,
It definitely looks more gentle.
oh yeah, for sure. So I
Yeah.
think it's just like an appearance thing because it's doing the exact same thing as the prong. It
Yeah.
just looks different. Like it's like smooth, like well, not
Yes.
smooth plastic, but like these plastic pieces.
It's smooth on the outside,
Yes.
so when it's on the dog, it just looks like a normal collar.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's sitting higher
Yeah.
than your normal collar, but it just looks flat.
Hmm.
Whereas the prong collar, you can definitely see like the shape of it, like the shape of the prongs, and it's like chromy metal. It just looks
And the
intense.
other thing that I'll say too is that like if you let's say you use the prong collar to train your dog how to like walk in a heel position, so right at your side, not walking ahead, not pulling, not anything or whatever. Some people bridge to um not having to use it anymore, but some dogs, depending on their drive, depending on their reactivity, depending on their behavior, I wanted to be able to just clip my dog onto his regular leash and go. it's not going to happen with my dogs. They're hunting dogs. Their prey drive is too high, and I have to use the prong collar every time. And that's just the way it is. And
Yeah.
it can be a little awkward to get on because it's like a link system. So you have to like take the two prongs and pinch them in together and make it go into the two holes on the next link to like put it together. So
Yeah.
it's not as easy to put on or off, I
And you
find.
got to make sure that it's at the right spot. So where you
Yes.
attach the leash is right at the back
Oh,
of the neck.
absolutely. Like it can't be in the front.
So because you can't turn it
Yeah,
after
well,
it's on.
exactly, because it's doit, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, it anyways, I use the prong, and I can say that my dogs are safe and that they're not abused, and that I need that to walk them because I'm going to do more damage having them pull and have it slip down the neck, and now I'm pulling on their vocal cords, their voice box, their everything, you know what I mean? And then they cough like if I walk them without it, they caught like they like stop and they're like bah, bah, and I'm like, oh my god, and I I put them in a sit stay and stuff, but I have my prongs like all the time, and that's just the way I do
And
it.
think about what it's doing to the owner also.
Hmm.
You might not see it at the beginning, but you're going to have your shoulder, your arm, your back. You're going to get some injuries with time,
Yes.
always holding your dog back.
So, and this is a common occurrence, and I watched on, like I said, you know how the interwebs are always listening to us. So after our last show, when we,
Uh-oh.
I know when we talked about it, a video popped up on my Facebook feed about Sean O'Shea, another excellent, excellent, excellent dog trainer with tons of videos on the internet, and it was a video of these people with a pit bull who they could not like they couldn't walk two steps down the street. If a person, a dog, a squirrel, a car, even a car went by, this dog went berserk and like jumping and lunging and to the point
Wow.
where it was a couple and the wife couldn't walk the dog anymore because he was too strong.
Yeah.
He got too big, he got too strong, she couldn't control him.
Oh,
So Sean O'Shea did a little like episode where he showed them the concepts behind it and the proper collar and that sort of stuff to help them out a bit with that. So yeah, you have to think about it. You have to think about the size of your dog and what you're going to be doing with them. And if you have, I would say, a medium to large sized dog, you need to get a handle on the leash work with them, like
yeah.
right out the get go. Because yes,
Yes.
they turn into monsters, and then next thing you know, you've got a dislocated shoulder and you're in the operating room.
Yes. Speaking of dogs that are barking at cars, when was this? I think it was on Wednesday. I was driving home from work, driving down the street, and there's this lady walking her little dog. And I'm driving by, and as I'm driving by, it starts to bark. Like it's looking across the street and it's barking. It's like, "Rah, rah, 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 rah."
Yep.
And I'm just looking at it. I'm looking across the street and I'm like, what is it barking at? And then it took me a few seconds and I'm like, I think it was actually barking at me,
Yeah.
like at the car.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
A friend of mine at work
But it was a tiny dog, but I can
yes.
imagine like a bigger dog, like she was holding him back and he
Yeah.
was barking at the dog. And I'm pretty sure if he would have went loose, he would have ran like straight up like in front of the car,
Oh, big
straight to the
time.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Adele has a small little, I think it's a Maltese, I think, like a tiny little dog named Bella. She's very sweet, but Bella is a car chaser. And she barks
Oh,
and lunges and wants to run, and like and she's another one that will dart out the door too. So Adele always jokes and says Bella's not meant for this world because she's going to get it one of these days.
oh.
but that's a behavior that you can fix, and I suggested like a prong to
Yeah.
her and stuff, and I may be helping her out with that in the near future. But yes,
Nice.
yes to the prong collar. All right, next up.
Yes.
Next up, we've got the shock slash e-collar.
Collar.
So,
I don't have much experience with that because I've never used one.
so here's I
Have you
yes, I
have
have.
you used one?
Yes, I have used
Yeah.
one. I've used both. So here's another little story. So in my previous household where I owned Becky and Scraps, my dad would come to walk the dogs every day, and there was a wooded area in right in behind where I lived. So you'd have to walk up the street and then walk into this beautiful wooded area where my dad would walk the dogs every day. It was great, except that Becky didn't have good recall. She still
Mm.
doesn't.
Mm.
And my dad would say, "All right, Becky, let's go." And she would come and be standing 5 feet away from him, and she would take one look at him and be like, "Yeah, I'm not done yet," and run back into the woods. And my dad would go nuts. He'd be like, "Becky!" and she would keep him waiting for up to an hour sometimes. So it drove him nuts.
Wow.
So my dad was on this walking her one day and going berserk over Becky, and this woman walked by and she said, I really hope I don't offend you by suggesting this, but she said I was having the same problem with my dog, and there's a guy who lives on the next block who sells shock collars out of his home." And my dad was like, "Which house is it?" She's like, "That one over there."
Show me.
And he literally, as soon as he got Becky, went right over to the house, fitted her for a shock collar, and it was $50. So my dad tells me about this. He's like, "Heidi, you have to call me as soon as you get home from work." I was like, "All right." So I called him. He tells me about this. So he went into this guy's house. He fitted Becky with this cheap ass collar. It had two options. It had a buzz, a vibration, and then it had the zap, the shock. Okay. So he put it on her, and to make sure that it was fitting properly in the proper place, he gave her a shock and she yelped. And then after that, if Becky had the shock collar on, she was no more than 3 feet away from you. And it got to the point where when you would say, "All right, like let's go for a walk," and you touch their leashes at the front door, and they would come and sit like I trained them to do. But Becky would come, and as soon as I pulled out the shock collar, she would turn around and go back and lay on the couch. Like she was like, "Not with that, I'm not." She wouldn't do it.
No, thank you.
Exactly. So I didn't try this shock collar on myself. I didn't. I don't know why. And this was back again pre my more knowledgeable dog training days. But we would put it on her, and eventually the battery died on it. But Becky didn't know, because anytime you put this thing on her, she, like I said, she wouldn't go more than 3 feet away from you. So
Yeah.
um, here's what what I have to say about this. Um, it was a cheaply made device. There was no control onto the amount of, and but I'm guessing that it was a pretty significant zap. It was enough to scare her to the point where she would be shaking when you put it on her. And I felt badly about that, being after becoming more knowledgeable. So this will lead me into my next thing, which is called the e-collar. So the e-collar is like the Rolls Royce version of shock collars. And
Yes.
it is not, it is expensive. I will say that. It's expensive. The e-collar costs I think it's like close to $200, because it depends. So you can get one that goes up to 3/4 of a mile, and then you can get one that goes like a mile and a half, I think. I forget what the measurements are exactly.
Yeah. Some re well, I saw some bark collars, so I guess that's not
Yeah. I think that's used.
quite the
Yeah,
same.
bark collars are a bit different. Because
Yeah.
this one, you have the control in your hand. You have it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
the e-collar is the device that goes onto the dog is um your little energy machine. And what it is it's a tens machine. I don't know if anybody out there has had physio before, but you have a tens machine, and it sort of like stimulates the muscle and gives you a little bit of an electrical thing. Okay, on the remote controller you have and it has a light on it too, so you can turn on a light so you can see where the hell your dog is at night, which is kind of cool. Nice little feature. But basically you push a button, and as long whenever you push this button, it is stimulating the dog. You're stimulating the machine. But it goes anywhere from 1 to 100. 100 is a probably the equivalent to the cheap shock collar that I mentioned before. So they are getting a shock like every time, like when you have it at 100. And like on the
Mhm.
shock collar, there's no control. So they're getting that a very intense shock every time. At a number one on the e collar, I cannot feel it. I cannot feel it until it is at 12. So it has a little dial on it, so you can dial it up. So what they recommend in the e collar training is that you never, ever, 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 ever use 100 unless the dog is in imminent danger. So if Becky was running into the street in front of a car, I would crank it and push the button and say, "Becky, no." And that would give her a zap to like zap her right the hell out of it, and she would come back. The working rate that I have her at, and this is where you have to do the training and you have to figure it out. So first you have indoor training, because like I said, indoor, they're in your house. and there's no distractions unless you're blasting music or there's another dog in your house or something. So her indoor working rate is at about an 8 or a 10. When we go outside where there's squirrels and there's smells and there's people and there's dogs and there's everything,
Mm-hmm.
she's at around a 15 to like a 18, depending on the
Yeah.
amount of distractions around. So it gives her a little buzz. And like you, and so Michelle actually did Becky's e-collar training, and then I came over and she showed me how to continue on the training with Becky. And the e-collar is a dream. I don't even need a leash with her anymore. She can walk in a heel with the e-collar on. She stops and sits, like I said, thresholds. Like I make them stop and sit before crossing the street every time. She stops and sits. She listens to everything because it's Becky, sit. And if she doesn't, I push the button and hold it until she sits and then release it. So again, it's always pressure, like uncomfortable feeling, and then release when they do what they're telling you to.
Yeah.
And that's all the training. Like Becky knows to go and lay down. Becky knows sit. So that's where you start. You start with the stuff that they already do. So you would say, Becky, sit, and you push on the button until she sits, and you say, good, and you release it. So she's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I have to listen to her. And this isn't a massive shock where you're hurting them. But Becky, like when Michelle trained her, Michelle, it took her forever to even just put on the collar without her shaking and being terrified. And that's because of the previous cheapo zap. She
Yeah.
was like, oh, I remember this thing, and it's somebody gonna get a hurt a
Oh.
real bad. So she was terrified, and now she's an absolute dream. If she gets distracted by a squirrel, Michelle has a video of her with a squirrel 3 feet away from her, and Becky is just sitting there and looking at Michelle like, what do you want me to do?
Oh.
Which is amazing. I have
Yeah.
nothing but great things to say about the e-collar, and it's helpful at the cottage. And I even showed how my dad how to use it, so that when he says Becky here, Becky knows she better get her ass back there, because the tens machine is going to tell her, hey, get your ass back over there.
Yeah. And how long does it last before you have to recharge it?
So I have again, so I charge it at the end of every day, but I'm using it every day to
Okay.
take her on her walk. Right. So if you're not using it every day, I would say it lasts around 24 hours. And again, I never use it in the house because I don't have to. Becky just goes and sleeps somewhere, or she comes around. She knows when it's dinner time. She goes to the door when she has to pee. I have no behavioral issues with her in the house. But if I did, I would leave it on her all day. So if you're using it every day for a sustained period of time, I would plug it in every night overnight, kind of like your cell phone. Plug in your phone, plug in
Yeah.
the collar. And and the another thing that I'll say about that company is that they're one of those companies that stand by their product, and if anything breaks on it or having any issues with anything, they replace it, no fees, no nothing
Oh,
or
that's really
anything.
good.
They're one of the,
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm a huge fan
Mm-hmm.
of the e-collar. All
Good.
right, which one's next?
I've never had to use one, but
It's amazing. I
yeah.
honest to God, it changed my world with Becky. It changed. Oh yeah. So the next one is the harness.
Harnesses.
Harnesses.
Yes.
Harnesses.
So there's like a bunch of harnesses. When you go to the pet store, there's like a wall of harnesses. I didn't look at them all. They all pretty much are similar. Me and Heidi were talking about this, where how we felt about harnesses. And we thought that on smaller dogs, it's okay because they don't pull as much. But as soon, like if you're walking your dog on their regular flat buckle collar and they're pulling, and you think that you're going to put a harness on your dog where it's resting on the dog's shoulder, so the strongest part of your dog, and you think it's going to help you, and it's going to stop your dog from pulling, the dog is just going to pull a lot more
With
and
with
a
with
lot harder.
with the larger dogs that we find.
Oh, definitely, yeah. The smaller dogs, no, because you can pretty much just hold them like they're 10 pounds, right?
Yep.
But if your dog is 100 pounds or even 75 pounds, and you're putting a harness where they can pull with their full body,
They're gonna just pull you right off
they're
your
just
feet.
gonna pull you. Yeah,
Seriously.
because the pressure is resting on their shoulder instead of their neck
And
now.
and when you think about it too, if that's what you need to do with your dog, then that's what you do with a large dog. Because now I'm thinking back, I used to work for these people.
Well, you never know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. But
Like you never know if it's gonna work. But I believe that depending on how like leash aggressive your dog is,
Hmm.
Like if he's just pulling a little bit, then maybe the harness will work. But if he's trying to chase squirrels or gets really excited when he sees a dog and is pulling you, if he has a harness on and he sees a dog and is pulling you, I think he's just going to pull you even harder.
So, but what I will say is that if you need your dog for that purpose, then yes, you would need a harness. So, an example of this is the
Mhm.
people that I used to work for had huskies, and they used to do this activity called skijoring. What i- what is
Ooh.
skijoring? You may ask. Skijoring is when you take your dog, you put a harness on them, and the harness, then you have a buckle around your waist, and you put on your
Oh.
cross country skis, and your dog pulls you, and you ski at the same time, so that you're going for like a super fast, like high paced cross country skiing. That is what.
Well, that's definitely a good reason to
Yes.
put a harness on your dog.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. I was like, huh, oh yeah, I remember they use that for that. But in terms of leash training and stuff, I wouldn't say that, because again, I tried the harness with Becky when I was working through
Yeah.
my pulling problems with her, and she just pulled harder, man. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
It's like,
Like if you're training your dog for sledding, then by all means put a harness on your
yeah,
dog.
you'll need the harness for that. But for
But yeah,
regular
but for
day to
leash
day,
pulling.
yeah, no, 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 no.
I did see a harness though called the training halter. And it has a collar component, and then it has two other components that attaches to the front of the collar, goes underneath the dog's armpits, and then attaches at the back. And the leash goes on the components that go around the armpits. So when the dog is pulling, it actually tightens around the dog's armpits and prevents them from pulling more. And I don't know, I've never actually used one. I don't know of anybody who's used one. So I don't know how well these work.
Yeah. I don't know
So
anybody who's used those either.
yeah. And I think again on a smaller dog it
Would work.
probably work.
Unless it's uncomfortable, that feeling of crushing like their torso, not crushing it, but squeezing on
Yeah.
it, and then maybe,
Yeah.
so it might be another one of those things to try. But anytime I've looked at those, I like look at it and I'm like, oh my god. Can you hear my dogs barking in the background? Bad doggies.
Ooh.
Anyway, so
Given.
given now. um
Becky.
I find them really complicated to get on, so again, you need to watch the videos and stuff and make sure that you're placing
Yes.
it on the dog properly, I would say, for that,
Yeah.
y'all.
The worst thing that could happen is that you think you have it on properly, and then as soon as you get outside, your dog is loose.
Oh my god, and which happens, it
Yeah.
does, it happens so
Yeah.
often. They slip out of
You
something
know
and
what
you're
I've
like, "Oh
done?
my god."
What I've done a few times is that Wiggum is home without like his regular collar on,
Mhm,
and then I take him out for a walk and I would just put the gentle leader on.
mhm.
And then like halfway through the walk, I would realize that he doesn't have his collar with his name and the phone number and the address. And then I would like be like, oh my God, like if ever this thing breaks and he were to like run away,
Mhm.
which I don't think he would, but you never
Yeah.
know, like nobody would know
Yeah,
the
I
phone
know.
number
I
or
know.
the address.
That's why, so with Becky, when I walk her to, again, to go across the street, she has three collars on. So she has the prong collar because I don't want her pulling me. She has her regular collar with her name and her address on it, and phone number.
Hmm.
And then she has the e-collar for when I let her off leash and to recall her back. And I could probably do without the prong with her and use the e-collar to have her not pull as well. But I just put all three on because it's just easier.
She's all geared up.
She's all geared up, ready to go. Becky. Becky. All right, the last one on the list,
So our next, yeah, the next one, which
muzzles.
is like our least favorite, muzzles, or no, there's another one
Oh,
before
oh,
that.
which one is it? Did I skip?
The citronella
Oh, yes.
spray collar.
All right. We
Yeah,
all
so
know.
we talked
Yep.
about this on our last episode.
Hmm.
So this is a collar that when your dog barks, it would spray citronella in front of the dog's face. So on the dog's nose, mouth, and it smells like citronella. It becomes very uncomfortable for them. And that you would think that because they're barking, there's a citronella spray, it's uncomfortable. They would, oh my God, I can't talk.
It just,
They would associate
yes.
the spray
Hmm.
to their bark, but then the citronella smell and the spray stuff, like the product, stays on their face and they can smell it for a prolonged period of time. So it's like a prolonged punishment.
I couldn't believe that they still have them. I thought that they would have pulled them
Yes.
by now.
Yeah. So I saw one at the pet store. It says this the spray is not harmful. You can have a citronella spray or an unscented spray.
Dogs have a super sensitive sense of smell, right? Like that's why they use them for bomb
Yeah.
training and like and all, drug training and all that stuff because they can smell stuff. Like they do scent training.
Mhm.
So to me the thought of spraying something to correct a behavior in the moment with a scent, that doesn't make sense to me because the scent stays around too long and then they wonder, okay, why am I still smelling this? This is awful. And
Yeah,
so
is what am I doing now that's not
exactly,
okay?
exactly. Or how do I get this awful then they lick it off of them or whatever, 'cause trying to get it off, like, "Get it off, get it off,
Yeah.
get it off." And then, yeah, what does that do to them? So, yeah, I was
You
surprised.
don't know what's in the product.
I
Yeah,
was
that's
surprised.
still out there.
Yep. Is that does that bring us to the last one, which is muzzles?
Muzzles.
Muzzles. So I asked, I go to the dog park fairly regularly, and I have rarely seen a muzzle. And but I find that even my personal reaction to a muzzle is like, okay, he's a biter, and that's what it's essentially used for. I asked the people in the stores. I said, are people buying these, and is it because they have super aggressive dogs, or like what's the deal? And she said most people buy them. Was what this one store owner said to me. Most people buy them for the vet visits because they get extremely nervous at the vet and they bite at the
Oh.
vet or the groomer.
Mhm.
So they put it on just for those types of visits where the dog's in a high stress environment and is reacting to it. But my thing there would be like train your dog not to.
Yeah. I've seen a lot. I've seen, well, not a lot, but quite a few dogs walking on the street with a muzzle
Oh,
on.
really?
But I've never seen the short snout muzzle,
Yeah,
which I did see at the pet
that
store.
one with the picture of the pug on the front wearing it. Yes.
Yes. And then I Googled it, and then there's another image of a pug with the short snout muzzle product on the dog, but it's the same one, but then it goes up to above the eyes, and then there's holes for the eyes.
What?
It's like a full
Hannibal.
face
It's like
mask.
it's like Hannibal Lecter, Puggable Lecter.
So yeah, it looked pretty funny, and I was like,
I don't know that I would put like a complete face mask on my dog unless it was for a
yeah,
particular like purpose of whatever. I don't
yeah.
even know. Oh, that's hilarious.
And I saw a product with of a muzzle product, and the picture on it was like a puppy
Really?
with a muzzle. Yeah, I was like, that's probably not the best image to put.
Oh my goodness, probably not. And
It's puppy biting.
well, exactly, it's puppy biting and then it's just like so what? Instead of teaching them not to, you're going to put a muzzle on them for life? Like yeah, that
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know if that was like the intention of the picture or they just
Yeah.
didn't think, but yeah, there was like a puppy picture with a muzzle.
All right, are you ready to play Boop or Snoot?
Boop or snoot.
Boop or Snoot. So we might have to do this really quickly, or we can continue it
Mhm.
on another episode even. So maybe we'll go through. But Boop or Snoot is something that Vero and I came up with, and we looked at some of the dog products out there, some of the stuff that makes life's a bit easier, some of the stuff that is just next level ridiculous, if you ask me. And so we're going to describe to you the product, and Vero and I are either going to say Boop, which means yeah, we like it, or Snoot, no, we turn our snoots to it. Like no, ridiculous. So, for this episode's Booper Snoot, we are going to talk about dog rocks.
Dog rocks.
Dog rocks.
So dog rocks is a product that you put in your dog's water, like in the water bowl, and your dog ingests this. And when the dog urinates in the grass, this product makes sure that the urine does not turn the grass a yellow color. Because anybody who's owned a dog knows that your grass will become yellow. There's going to be some spots everywhere in your yard, or maybe just one big spot because dogs tend to go at the same spot that will be yellow. So a company invented a product to make sure that your dog's urine does not turn the grass yellow.
So it's so there's a photo.
The grass might be greener on the
So
other side.
exactly. So the photo is of a dog lifting its leg, and then there's two side by side photos. One of grass with like a bunch of yellow spots on it, and the other one with like this beautiful, like flush, like green grass.
Ooh.
So I looked at this and I was like, God come on. There's no way. There's no way. And I don't know anybody who's used these. I don't think I will use these because I'm not a
No.
believer. So
No. I mean, I think that's just part of having a dog.
yep. And so
You're
I say Snoot.
Snoot, double Snoot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking to see actually if there's like any ratings on it. Dog Rocks
That's what
reviews.
I'm doing
Oh, are you?
too. Yeah.
So the dog rots are great and work well, but I find it easier to place them in a jug of water and then pour it into the dog's dish. So I wonder if they like even like dissolve or what it is. Like I wonder what these things are made of. I didn't read the ingredients list on it. We might have to go back, but anyways, I snoot. I snoot the dog rocks.
Me too. So I'm reading this one review where it seemed to be working at the beginning.
Mhm.
And then like pretty much stop burning the grass.
Yep.
And then this review says that over the winter she noticed spots again, but she kept up with the product,
Mhm.
but it was getting worse.
Oh,
So I don't know if it starts at the beginning and then
gets worse.
urine becomes more powerful. Yeah, I don't know.
I thought that was ridiculous. Anyways, stay tuned for
Snoot.
other products to boop or snoot. And I think that wraps it up for today.
Yeah.
So tune in next time for Let's Boop Snoot.